I am now.
All right, this is our Hunter on-car brake lathe. To set it up, first of all, you got to find the right adapter that will go over the rotor here. This connects the, let me get out of the way. Goes over the rotor here so we can hook the lathe up to it. But before I put that on, see that hole right there? That hole has got to line up with the screw head sticking out right here. It's got a line on it so you can see, so it will go up flush. Okay? If you try to hook it up backwards, you'll damage this plate here and the adapter. Okay? Whenever you put these adapters on, the tool comes with the lug nut kit here. Be sure that I've already picked out the lug nuts that we need here, but be sure you use them because the bevel on them is made to go over this piece right here. Okay? And install it on the car. We got a bad lug stud here. You always want to use however many lug nuts you got for the number of studs you got. Okay? We've got 4, but one of them's bad, so we're going to have to put it on with 3 today. Chris, why didn't you have us do the other side? It was good.
Yeah, man, I'm the technician.
Why didn't you have us do another side where we had 4 good studs?
It don't matter. Just put 3 nuts on there.
We don't have no answers to this. All right, run those up by hand, and then take your ratchet. And you ain't got to over tighten them, but you want them good and snug. Okay. Now, why this brake lathe is hooked up to this side? Because this vehicle is equipped with a transaxle, the other side is going to be spinning the whole time. So make sure the rotor is either off the other side or it's being retained by a lug nut. Don't go over there and touch that hub when it's spinning. Because however fast this side is going, the other side is going to be spinning the same speed. Okay? So I advise to stay away from the other side while you're cutting this side. Is the rotor off? Okay, it's off. Now we're going to get ready to connect the machine to the car. Always make sure it is unplugged until you're done with all the connections and you're just ready for the controls. That way we ain't got to worry about somebody coming in, bumping the on switch, turning it on, anybody getting hurt. Just leave it unplugged until everything's connected, okay? One of the things I like to do is roll my wheel up where my mark is up right here, okay? And then take the lathe, turn it up, as close as I can get to that. Now we're going to take and slide forward. We got a problem. You always got to cut right where the caliper goes. On the back, where our shield's at, we can't cut back there because we can't access the rotor. So see, the way the machine's turned right now, we can't get in there, so we're going to have to flip the machine around so we can come in here where the caliper's at. Okay? Always make sure this lever here is up, and when it's up, carefully rotate the lathe around. Yes, it's upside down, but guess what? As long as this box right here is level, it don't matter. It all works the same. Okay? Now I got to come back and look at where my boat's sticking out here. I'm going to try to turn my wheel down to line it up down there. Pretty close. Now the lathe will spring up and down based on the height of the car. Okay? So I'm going to slide up. Now. Let me come up a little bit more. There we go. Now, once it's connected, you got to reach around and make sure that your bolt and your hose lined up. There we go. You want to make sure there's no gap up here. Make sure it comes up flush. Okay? You can't see that on the camera, can you, where it's flush? Well, you want to make sure where your lathe comes up to the adapter, make sure that your hole and your bolt head lined up so everything comes up flush before you connect it. Okay? The other thing I failed to mention, but it's not too late, you want to be sure that this piece right here will spin. It's got to be loose like that. That's our calibration plate. As soon as we get this thing connected and ready to go, we're going to calibrate it to the car. We'll use this plate for that. Okay? On this plate, it's got two shoulders on it that makes it fit down in between these two flat plates. Okay? Make sure that the two flat slides are lined up and it will not twist.
If you bring it over this way, you can get it on the camera.
Can you see it right there?
Right there.
Okay. You see what happens if it's too loose? See how it's spinning right there? Is that on the camera? Mm-hmm. If it spins, you need to stop and line it up and tighten it up just a little bit before you move forward. So I'm going to line the two flat spots up and rotate it down just to where it won't spin. Now the two flat sides are locked in. Make sure it's still loose. Okay? Now this shaft right here, this is how we connect the brake lathe to the adapter, which is connected to the hub. Rotate it to the right. Once it's tight, our tool here that stays on the lathe, we'll reach down, tighten it up, good and snug. You ain't got to kill it, just kind of tighten it up there till it's there. Okay? Now, one of the things I like to do before I go any further is go ahead and do my pre-adjustments with my cutting arm here. Okay? If it has to be moved, there's an Allen-headed bolt right under here. All you do is break it loose.
I'm gonna get the camera, come around there where he at. I can get all that.
All we do is break it loose right here. And that allows us right here to move in and out, much like our bench lathe, so we can put it where we need it. Okay? I'm going to come to about the middle of the rotor and tighten it back up. And again, we're not trying to kill it just good and snug so it can't move. Okay? Now to move our cutters on the shaft, that was moving the entire shaft, cutters and everything. To move them, all we do is loosen up the handle here. If I loosen the handle on the front one, only the front one's going to move. Okay? If I tighten the front handle, loosen the back one, then only the back one moves. Okay? So whichever handle is loose, that's the one that's going to move and the other one will stay still. Don't crank down on it real hard. All it takes is just snug and that's good. Okay? Now to move the cutters back and forth this way, in and off the rotor, we use this wheel right here. Okay? So I'm going to pull up. Look, I still need to move everything in just a little bit. So I'm going to do that before I fire it up and calibrate it. I'm going to come back down, loosen my Allen-headed bolt, come down to about the middle and snug it back up. We'll come back off of that. Make sure your box is level here, your control box. All right, plug me up. You probably want to come back around to the switch box so you can see the calibration procedure.
Let me take this camera off of him. No, take it off.
The little screw at the bottom.
Come back around here to the controls. I'm gonna make sure my plate's loose. It is. I'm gonna reach over, turn the power on. All right, as soon as it powers up, we gotta calibrate the machine before we cut the rotor. What we're gonna do is hit the calibration button here. It's gonna spin that rotor 3 different times to take the run out of it. There it goes. That's 1. 2.
Kind of like when you calibrate those cameras over there for the front end line machine.
Just about like it. That's number 3. Now what's gonna happen, it's gonna turn 1 more. Now, see how we're green all the way around here? We're looking for 3 green dots there. And down here, we've got to have 2 double greens there. If we're not double green, we take our tool, rotate our calibration plate up, and tighten it until we get double greens. Since we're in double greens, I'm just going to snug everything up and be sure I stay in double green. Alright? Of course, I didn't have to move it because we were already in double green. If it wasn't in double green, you just twist it until you get it in double green. Okay? Once you're there, you hit the test run out button. Alright, we're ready to go. What we're going to do now is turn the wheel on, let it run. We're going to turn our speed up to about 80, 90, somewhere in that range. And then we're going to go in with our cutting bits. Okay? What did we forget to put on this rotor that we would have used on the bench lathe?
Chatterband.
Chatterband. We ain't got a chatterband on it, do we? Why not?
Chatter control.
Do what?
They can go fast, pretty slow.
You got a chatter button on the machine.
What happens when you use a chatterband with an on-car brake lathe, and you do have to with old ones, the technicians forget and leave it on there. Well, if you've got a chatterband covering up the vents where it cools at, it can't stay cool. Number one, the rotor warps quicker than it's supposed to. Number two, you get that burning smell, somebody comes back, they're all upset. This machine here has got an anti-chatter control button. It changes the speed as it's cutting to keep it from chatter. Okay? So I'm gonna flip it over. How fast I say we want to go? Let's stay right there. Yeah, I'll slide my pan underneath so you don't have to sweep the floor. That'll catch our chips as they're falling out. Now, when this thing is spinning, it's spinning. So don't get your hands up around it because it's not going to stop if you do. Okay? So keep your hands out here where they're supposed to be. Now I'm going to take and roll my cutters in. And just to keep it consistent, I'm going to stop about the middle of the road, just like I teach you on the bench lathe. Okay? And I'm going to ease in until I barely touch, and then I'm going to stop. Okay? I'm going to start with the outside because I can see it good. Anybody got a flashlight? Exactly what I need. Ease it in, just like on the bench lathe. As soon as it touches, we're going to call that our zero. Now we can't physically set zero on this machine. It's not set up like the bench lathe. But all you want to do is take and ease that over. If you come over too hard with that, you're going to hear a louder grinding sound because you're going to be pushing the bit in first. Okay? Now that I've got that one snug, I'm going to loosen the back. And I'm going to slide it into zero. You may have to get down so you can see it. As soon as it touches, snug it up. Okay? Now we're going to take and ease our cutters on in, off the brake pad surface before we roll in to cut. Check the back, make sure we're all in. Alright?
You don't want no back shot of that, do you?
No, we good. It looks the same on the back. Now that we're all the way in, I'm going to loosen the front. Each line on this machine right here represents 4,000 instead of 2 and 1 like our bench lathe. So, you know, you kind of got to use common judgment. If you only need a little bit, between those two lines is 4,000. So don't go a full line if you only need a little bit, that's 4,000. Okay, so I'm gonna roll in about 3-ish maybe to get us a cut here. All right, I got the front rolled in, tighten it up, loosen the back, roll it in. Once you got your cutter set, grab your wheel, rotate that to the right. Now, hit the anti-chatter button, it's good to go, it does its thing. Once you learn how to use this, it's much faster than a bench lathe, number one. Number two, it does a much better job. What is the advantage to using an on-car lathe?
Time.
Time and what else?
Everything stays on the vehicle. You don't have
Do
to
it now?
You don't have to break nothing off the vehicle.
Well, the big advantage is it cuts that rotor to the vehicle. It takes into account any imperfections in the steering knuckle or the hub, and it cuts it directly to the vehicle. At one time, some import manufacturers had trouble with bench cutting lathes, or cutting rotors on a bench lathe, putting them back on the car, and you still got a steering wheel vibrating. Because whenever you cut one, you're cutting it to wherever it's mounted at. So if there's a difference from the car to the lathe, we may not be true to that. And Honda even had it one time where their rotors, they didn't make an adapter to cut them on the bench lathe to force people to have to use one of these. And guess what? We don't have a fast and slow cut. If you cut it one time and it's done, it's done. All you gotta do is clean it up and go. On the bench lathe, you gotta do a fast cut and a slow cut. This one here, once you're cleaning, look how far it is. We're over halfway finished already with that cut. And we gotta wait and see where it turns out, see if we need another cut or not. Any questions about this lathe? Yep. You talking about the way the whole thing's moving? Yep. If you're working on a big truck, you can hook this adapter up to keep it from bouncing around. But the guy that come set this up for us, he told us he didn't care if it bounces around. He said they have enough technology in this machine, it can cut it through bouncing around like that and it wasn't any problem. So we usually let it bounce around a little bit. And one of the things that makes it bounce a little bit is the speed changes like that. We almost off here. Once it's all the way off, just come back, and this is going to be rotating. Just ease off of it. That stops everything. Okay? Now we're going to need another cut because we've got just a little bit left on it there. I want to look at the back side and see what it looks like. Backside looks good all the way around. No problems there, but everybody see the little bit right here we didn't get off the front? So we're gonna go back in and cut that off.
No, you just cut the front. Just the front.
You have to do the crosshatch pattern or the non-directional thing?
Yes, you can. I mean, you just do it the same way. We're gonna look at that in just a minute. So I'm gonna turn it back up. I'm gonna come back in. See, I didn't touch any of this time. It's just like the bench lathe. It's all set. Loosen it up. Come in 1,000th or so. I'm just gonna let the back slide across. I'm not gonna cut it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Now, just cutting the front side like that, would that not throw the balance of the rotor off?
Some manufacturers say whatever you cut off one side, you gotta cut off the other. But the thing about cutting the brake blade is, you gotta keep in mind to take your cutting metal off. You know, so really all you wanna do is true it up. Because as long as it has no lateral run out, balance is not an issue due to the way it operates. Because it goes laterally or circular like that. So the way it mounts up strong like that with a wheel against it, just because one side's got a couple thousandths cut off of the other side don't cause, it's not going to give you any balance trouble because it stays there. Okay? So keep in mind, this used to be called truing a drum or a rope. Because all you want to do is make it true again, or laterally make it not have any run. Okay? And like I say, whenever you're cutting. You know, you're cutting off of it, which is not necessarily a great thing. You're just wanting to true it up and make it smooth. But that's a very good question. What would you get this time? You got to hit our chatter control. However, where does the rotor usually chatter at?
The back.
Out on the outside of it, where it gets weak. So I caught it right about halfway, we're probably okay. All the chatter control does is keep shifting chatter. So as long as we wasn't chattering before I pushed it, we're fine that I pushed it. So we're gonna get it this time. We're gonna get that small 452 like the old motor. The other side shot. Other side of the shot. Yep, we used it the other day. Typically we only use it on live work. Because the shafts get thinner if you're not careful. So we typically save it for just live work. We had to put a shaft in that one over there a couple years ago. And it got kind of pricey. Alright. Sounds like we're done. Reach back here.
Now that wheel stop when you grab it? So you got it.
If it's locked in, it won't. You just kind of got to walk with it.
Okay. Couldn't tell like where you grab it.
Yeah, I just got to quick enough to grab it and turn it there. All right, turn it down. Let's look at it. That looks pretty darn good. And the back looks good. Okay. Now, if you choose to swirl cut it, back your cutter up as far as you can, and we swirl cut it just like we do on the lathe over there. We want to carefully work our tool in. We can come in right there, and we can come in right there for the back. Okay? I'm going to start with the front. Crank your speed back up. Carefully. Be careful, don't get that fender. I was hitting the underside of it. Now, it may be necessary to get the bottom to come in from the bottom, like to get the back coming in from the bottom. Yeah, I got a lot more spinning that way.
That's good.
You got a close-up up?
Mm-hmm.
Looks good and feels even better. Come feel that. See if you put one on the bench lathe that felt like that.
Everybody get a feel, get a feel.
Get a feel. Hey, it's like no other. Get a feel. It's smooth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anybody want to put one on a bench lathe and challenge they can make it smooth? Lunch on Friday. I'm all about some lunch. Lunch on Friday.
Or you put one on the bench lathe and use the on-car brake lathe every now and then?
No, you put one on the bench lathe and compare it to mine on the car for lunch on Friday. Smoothest wins.
I would say that's worth.
Now you talking about one of my rares?
One that you cut.
One that I brought in?
I have to bet on myself.
Yeah. Alright, now that it's done, everything's cut off. Flip it off. What's the first thing we need to do now? Unplug it. You always want to have it unplugged when you're fooling with it. That way there's no doubt we got any problems. Once it's unplugged, first of all,
Disconnect.
take it loose. Hold on, little buddy. Knock it right there down to keep it from moving on you. Try not to tighten that up too much because it tends to get tight. Slide it off. Now, as soon as it's off, I like to get in the habit of going ahead and breaking my calibration plate back loose. Spin it around. I usually come all the way off with this to where it's at the point that it will spin. Make a couple of rounds with it, make sure everything's good, come back to the top, and what I want to do now?
Screw it down so just enough so it won't spin.
Just enough so it won't turn, that's right. I'm safe right there. Everything's loose. This part of the lathe is ready to go to the other side of the car now.
But that's important too, cause it'll take it up if you don't if you screw it with that.
Yep, if you don't have the slides lined up where it won't turn, and you go to tighten that up, you damage this entire plate. And we're probably looking at $1,000, $1,200 to fix the two of it. Okay, so always make sure you got that right before you go on with it. And once it'll slide like that, roll it back, hand me the wrench. Take your adapter off, and what would we do before we put the brake caliper and all back on? Clean it. Why you want to clean a rotor or a drum after you cut it?
You get all the metal off of it that you shaved off of it.
What happens if you don't get the metal off of it?
No.
Cause build-up on it.
What'll happen is it'll embed in your new friction material, whether it be a brake pad or a brake shoe, and even though everything looks new, what kind of sound do you have?
Squeal.
Not a squeal, but a grind, like a metal-to-metal sound, even though everything's new. People tend not to like it. Always put your adapters back on the lathe itself. It's got holders around. Clean your tray out, roll your cord up. If you're done, if you're going to the other side, just move everything to the other side. You can cut that off. Any questions?